Dwight being our guest, what impressed you most about what they've put together since, bringing in Kidd till right now?
Well, what's impressed me, first of all, I have to get this out of the way. I wasn't a fan of the Jason Kidd hire for the Brooklyn Nets. I wasn't a fan of how Jason Kidd finagled his way to becoming the head coach of the Milwaukee Bucks. I understand he had a relationship with the owners, and I guess it was kind of predetermined as to what was going to happen. But all the talk about how Jason Kidd was going to be the head coach when they hadn't even fired the previous head coach.
Yeah.
But that being said, it has turned out to be a magnificent move. Jason Kidd is proving everybody wrong, including myself, of how good a coach he is in the NBA. His transition has been miraculous as far as I'm concerned. To go from being a player basically right to the coaching, to the head coaching ranks has been terrific, the way he's transitioned himself into that role. And he has the Milwaukee Bucks playing tremendous on the defensive end. Has a bunch of long guys, athletic guys, led by Giannis Antetokounmpo and John Henson, and hopefully Jabari Parker can come back into the fold. But what really has impressed me, also Michael Carter-Williams as well, but what's impressed me the most is that Greg Monroe, one of the top tier free agents, if you will, one of the higher free agents this offseason, decided to sign there instead of going to, let's say, a bigger market as New York or Los Angeles is concerned. But he recognized that Milwaukee, at least in the Eastern Conference, has a legitimate shot at the very least of getting to the Eastern Conference Finals next season, just based on what they did last season, losing Jabari Parker in the middle of the year, trading Brandon Knight away, bringing in Michael Carter-Williams, basically transitioning into two different teams, and having, showing some success in the playoffs. But next year now, they're being touted as a top 4 Eastern Conference team. Now that you have the reputation as being a good team, can they handle it? Can they handle prosperity? They are a young team. They have a nice roster, but they have a young team. How is that going to transition going forward next year? But I like the moves. I like their youth. And I like the fact that they brought in Greg Monroe, who is not a great defensive player, but he's terrific on the offensive end. They're going to try and hide him defensively, but I think just out of pride, he's going to try and be a better defensive player. He's going to try and live up to the contract, and they're going to be good. Because he's just only going to make them better. Getting Jabari Parker back from injury is going to make them better, and they're going to be a fun team to watch. Are they championship contenders? I don't think they're there yet, but at the very least, they're going to give Eastern Conference teams problems next season, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Now, Mark, you brought up some great points. They played without Jabari Parker. They changed their point guard halfway during the season. Michael Carter-Williams apparently is a big Jason Kidd guy, or big point guard. Jason Kidd really likes this type of point guard. Bringing in Jabari Parker, bringing all these new faces. What do you see? You spoke about the defensive side. What do you talk about the offensive potential of now having Khris Middleton, Carter-Williams, Jabari Parker, Greg Monroe?
Well, first of all, I feel tall next to you guys here. Imaginary movie land taller seat here. I wanted to say, chemistry is everything in basketball, chemistry and culture. And, Jason Kidd went from a squad, I think they won 14 or 15 games the year before he came. And it just says a lot that he's kind of been assembling these guys and, bringing Chris Copeland. I think they lost Jared Dudley, which is kind of a bit of a veteran loss, and Grievous Vasquez is coming in this year, so they're going to have a point guard situation. With Tyler Ennis, they're going to have 3 point guards at least on the squad, so they're going to have to figure things out as they go. And they also, the elephant in this room is the stadium issue. I think it's being voted on again this week. The fans are trying really hard for them to keep their stadium. Ownership threatening to go to Seattle or Vegas, so that's an issue that they have to solve. You don't really want that going into the season. Really, it's going to be learn as you go. And in the Eastern Conference, at least they have that cushion where they don't have to be battling for the last slot in the West, which is something they'd probably be doing on the other coast. So I think he's in a good situation. Jason Kidd and Jabari Parker is going to be back. So they're just building for the future.
Absolutely, and they may have the tallest point guard duo in the league in Grievous Vasquez and Mike Carter-Williams, both 6'5", 6'6", which is again Jason Kidd's bread and butter. It allows him to have his style of play the entire 48 minutes. But as a closing point on these Bucks, Dwight, you were saying how Greg Monroe is putting more effort into his defense. My big worry is starting a front court of Jabari Parker and Greg Monroe defensively. I know you have John Henson, but those rotations to me will be key because there'll be a lot of times where unless Greg Monroe takes huge steps, people are going to be able to get to the basket, in my mind, at ease. How do you see that front court rotation?
Well, that's the thing. I'm not sure of their rotation on the back end. I know they just traded away Zaza Pachulia, who was I think a major part of what Jason Kidd wanted to do in terms of if they got beat on the perimeter, they would have big Zaza back there to protect the paint. Now it's going to be a different dynamic going forward this season. Maybe they're not finished in trying to acquire somebody big who can be a deterrent in the paint. But I still like what they have on the perimeter. I think what Jason Kidd is hopeful of is that the guys on the wing at the point guard position can contain dribble penetration so they don't have to be so concerned with the interior. But like I said earlier, Greg Monroe is going to the Milwaukee Bucks with a reputation of not being a very good defensive player, and I'm sure he's going to hear that over and over and over again, and he's going to say, you know what, I've got something to prove here. I'm being tabbed as a major piece to a possible contending team here in the Eastern Conference. I'm a major piece to this puzzle, and the spotlight, the focus is going to be on me, so maybe I got to, pull up my bootstraps here and start playing some defense. They're going to expect 15 to 20 points per game out of me. They're going to expect a certain amount of rebounds, maybe 8.5 to 10 rebounds a night from me. I got to buckle down now and play some defense.
Well, he steals pretty well.
Yes, absolutely. But the reality is, Jason Kidd's bread and butter with this Buck team is their defense. They can clamp down on people. And as I said, if you take a picture of all their long athletic defensive players and you have them all put their hands together, they can go from sideline to sideline. They cover that much ground. All right, so we're going to see how that dynamic works out. But I love the future of the Milwaukee Bucks franchise. They're finally getting back to the point of where we're going to pay attention to them. All right, they were an afterthought for so many years. The arena wasn't nice. Their colors weren't nice. It just wasn't anything that was relevant. But now they recognize what's going on. They do have the arena issue, and I don't like the fact that where they're trying to bully the public funding to try to make them pay for it with all that political red tape. But they're trying to change them. They're going back to the original uniform colors, which I think are very nice, and they're going in the right direction. Jason Kidd has those guys going in the right direction, and I hope that they try to keep this young core together so they can grow together instead of trying to win now, and if things don't work out, you start trading pieces away. They're too good, they're too young, and I think bringing in Greg Monroe is a major step forward for that team to possibly contend in the Eastern Conference.
Absolutely. As a closing thought, I can't believe Khris Middleton's name has been mentioned this whole time.
I can imagine. I keep on forgetting. To me,
one of the better up-and-coming 3-and-D guys in the league. Again, 6'7", plays the 2-guard, to your point, extremely long with Antetokounmpo and such. He's going to be a major piece. And people thought they got him at a great deal. But just as a closing point, this is a little bit of an interesting one. I want each of you to name, whose team is this? Who is the guy on the Bucks? Because to me, it's a bit up in the air.
My answer is easy. Jason Kidd. He runs the show on the.
If you have to name a player, you have to name one player.
In terms of who their go-to guy is, or who is the guy?
The guy.
Oh my God.
Who's the face?
Khris Middleton.
The player.
Khris Middleton, maybe, because he's the guy. Now you know what? I don't want to get caught up in this either, but he's the big shot taker for this team. If you've watched them I'd say since January, who's the guy taking and making big shots from Milwaukee? It's Khris Middleton. Who was, besides signing Greg Monroe, who was of the utmost importance for them to get signed this offseason?
Well, having Jabari Parker back is going to be a lot of points.
True, and it was Khris Middleton too, though. So, Jabari Parker, I don't think he's played enough games as to where you and I, the three of us, are going to say he's the guy. I'm going based on what I saw last season, and as of right now, Khris Middleton.
I like that. 3-and-D income's what you're saying, Mark.
I'm still saying Jason Kidd.
Okay.
You refuse to choose a player, Jason Kidd.
But he doesn't play though, Mark.
No, he doesn't play, but everything there is because of him, and he really runs the show behind the scenes. Apparently there was a rumor that he wanted to be a director of basketball operations, so that type of thing that went on in Brooklyn, sees that being a continuing issue. Power plays with that organization. I hope it's not an issue, but I think it's going to keep him anyway.
Jason has that reputation, though, guys. I think he wants to have the same power that Stan Van Gundy has in Detroit.
He's got a couple of years to earn that one.
But if you know Jason Kidd, Jason's ego is bigger than the city of Montreal. So that's what he wants ultimately. He wants total control of an organization. He won't want to be president because he respects his friends, but in terms of the basketball stuff, he wants to run everything.
Exactly. And as my last point for saying the crucial piece, I actually think it's Antetokounmpo on a key point. I think their success will be predicated on his ability to defensively play power forward on that team, because they're going to start Parker and Monroe.
Sure.
I think if he puts on some weight, already has the length and height, I think if he defensively can guard a four as well and pick up the harder defender, they're going to be strong. If not, I think that front court, as good as a scoring front court as that team will be, is going to be a bit Swiss cheese. There's great defenders on the perimeter to limit their ability to get there, but once they're there, I question.
So ultimately, you think Giannis Antetokounmpo is going to end up being a power forward?
I think that's
as opposed to a small forward.
I think in the modern NBA, where we're seeing our Draymond Greens and such being able to do everything, he has the height and length of a power forward, but he has the skill set of a two guard.
It's a switchblade.
This comes across as a great modern NBA power forward, and it takes away a bit of the pressure of learning how to shoot the three, right? Because he's playing the two or the three, he's going to have to learn to shoot a little better and more consistently than he is.
Well, but to your point though, Phil, if you want Antetokounmpo to end up being a power forward, if you will, I think he's going to be more of a stretch four as opposed to a four that you give the ball down to on the low block and say, go get me a basket.
But that's why you have Monroe.
Okay.
Right? That's his bread.
Okay, true. But that's what I'm saying. So if you want the two interior guys to complement each other, I think you're going to want Antetokounmpo to be able to at least become a 35% three-point shooter.
Sure.
If you want Greg Monroe to have room to operate on the interior. But I like your train of thought and having him as your power forward, because it enables you to have Jabari Parker as your three, Middleton as your two, and MCW as your one. The length of that starting five is
Or you can do
crazy.
some weird things and have Parker as the sixth man off the bench, start Vasquez, and
You could do that.
there's a whole bunch of things. But
I think Vasquez was brought in to play the same role that he's had the last couple of years with the Toronto Raptors.
all right, well, this has been the Milwaukee Bucks preview for the 2015-16 season. We're going to come right back with a little Canadian content. You won't want to miss it.